I can't believe it's been 19 years since we birthed or started Family Praise Center. And it's been an interesting 19 years, a process of discovery and a great journey. The landscape has changed, but the spirit remains the same. And I think that's the most interesting thing to me, is that through all the changes that we've been through as a church, there's that one ingredient that our people have always had when you walk in, praise and worship, very excited, responsive to preaching. I've preached all over the nation, and still there's just no church that responds to the Word of God like Place for Life. What's your most vivid memory in the beginning?
I was 12 or 13. I was 13 years old, but I remember Vince and Cindy Flores, who were with us for years. They were founding members of the church, and Cindy worked, I think, as your assistant secretary for years, and one of my all-time favorite couples in the church. But I remember Vince and Cindy being back there on that counter, making the first sign that we ever had for Family Praise Center.
Vince and Cindy are so exemplary of all of those couples back then. Were so committed, so sacrificial. Probably the greatest team you could ever assemble to start a church with.
Yeah. We really lived up to that name, Family Praise Center. Everybody was a family, and it was just a house full of praise. And we came to the potential of that name and really lived it out.
Our ministry was birthed on November 4th, 1993. Our church began at 1599 Bandera Road in the storefront property. We began with 60 people.
We started out $20,000 in debt. And I can recall Pastor Rick standing on top of our checkbook, the church checkbook, and declaring that we would be prosperous over time. Not very many people do that kind of thing. That's pretty innovative.
And our purpose statement originally was equipping the family for ministry. And boy, that was some good times. I couldn't believe those guys would meet with me every Sunday morning at the beginning of our church at 4:30 on Sunday morning.
And we went from 60 to 500 pretty quickly at 1599. And a lot of street services, a lot of ministry efforts out there, and cleaning up trash out of the parking lot on Sunday morning, getting there, those early morning meetings with the elders and ministers, and sitting in Pastor Rick's office, and that individual impartation that he really took the time and really poured into our lives to make us become who we are today.
Those were our formative infancy years as a ministry, and it set the tone for all 19 years that we've been here. Every time you walked into the sanctuary, it was intense, it was passionate. The people of God were hungry for God to do something in their life. Pastor Rick always came to the house, always, with a very specific word from God for the people at Family Praise Center and in Place for Life.
And then when we moved into 1950, it wasn't long thereafter that you met your husband-to-be.
My husband.
That was a cool move. I remember when we first moved into that building, the first day. Do y'all remember what happened the first day?
Yeah, worst rainstorm we've had in years in San Antonio.
Yeah.
I remember working, grouting the last bit of tile about 3 hours before service was supposed to start.
Yeah.
There was so much energy about that move. I remember it was so exciting.
It was so many people that we couldn't get all the people in the building. And I remember we started growing so fast in that building.
Yeah.
At 1950 that we finally went to 4 services.
Yeah.
And I can remember Fawn being in line when the news came. I think she was 15 years old, and they asked her, "What are you doing standing in line to get in church?" And she said, "Don't you know this is the most happening place in San Antonio?" But people would stand in line all the way to the street to get in that building.
And I do remember the first day over at 1950 in our conference. Pastor Dale Hines, I think, was there, and some of the impactful words we had over there, and the times, the momentum that we took place. Pastor Michael Pitts coming in, and people standing in line in 3 or 4 services, and going 7 days straight and watching just the place just fill up and kids sitting on the floor and coming every night with Pastor Pitts, and the attendance just kept growing, and the lives that were changed and the memorials that were formed.
When you walked into the sanctuary, there was always a sense of anticipation and expectation for God to do something spiritual and powerful. His presence was always and has always been thick in the house. The preaching has always been powerful, but more than anything else, we never ever sat back on our laurels. We're always pushing the edge and always pulling on God to do something different for us.
And then I remember Robin and I driving by that property, this property that we're on now, and climbing that fence, that gate. Mm-hmm. We really felt like God wanted us to have that property. Mm-hmm. We climbed that fence, and when we landed on the other side of the gate, this old security guard looked like Barney Fife. He had his hand on his gun shake. His hand was shaking. And we walked the property with him.
I remember Pastor Rick telling the story that he looked right at that man and said, "This is our property." And they let him walk the property. A few weeks later, he brought some of the ministers and elders, and they did the same exact thing.
You know, we went from 1599 Bandera to 1950 Bandera to here at 5820 Northwest Loop 410. And I can remember distinctly the transition that we made. Just prior to that, we had a wonderful conference. There was a lot of money given, a lot of spiritual energy generated.
Remember, we got to watch the process happen through certain videos and stuff and when Pastor Rick would get up talking about the business process of trying to secure this land, and there were some challenges and some hurdles to cross. But one of my favorite memories is when Pastor Rick and Paul Haben drove to Austin to sign that contract that finally gave us this facility. And on their way back, they pull off in the hill country right there off the highway, and Pastor Rick just dances on the side of the highway because he's so excited about what God did for our ministry. And it led up to a crazy last service at 1950. I remember them rolling across the stage and everybody running everywhere, and just feeling that victory was just a wonderful memory.
When we first bought that property, I was just getting back from college in Minnesota. Justin, who was going to be my brother-in-law, had just gotten back from college in Colorado. We'd both been back for about 2 days. And me and Jason, Jason Pasola is the reason we had such a big youth group, by the way.
Yeah, definitely.
He single-handedly invited, I think, 90% of the teenagers.
He was a go-getter, man.
Well, we decided to go eat breakfast at Tinka Taco, and you called me. You told me, well, I want you to go up to the church and get a credit card from Paul Haben. Y'all go down there to Home Depot and buy 3 weed eaters. They said, I want you to go up to the new property. And that property was 20 acres, and there were weeds that were 6 feet tall all over the property. He said, I want y'all to go start weed eating. Y'all get that place looking right. I don't want you to stop until y'all got that whole place manicured and looking right. We went and got weed eaters, went up to the property, and we weed eat it while Justin sat in the car and talked to my sister on the phone. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. He talked on the phone to my sister all day, and we weed eat it and weed eat it, weed eat it, weed eat it some more. We finally, I think after a few months, he got fed up and sent a whole team of men up to the property after a few months to try to help us get that place looking right and manicured. But I will say that Jason Pasola and myself were the first 2 people to put hands on that property, which feels good now. Looking back is good memories.
Our first services in here, we had no carpet, we had no chairs. Actually, what we did was we'd stack all the chairs into the middle of the sanctuary. All this platform was all temporary staging, and there'd be dust. We'd have to sweep every service. Before and after every service, we'd have to sweep the whole place because it was just concrete floor. And we did that as a church community, as a family. We'd clean the grounds up as a church community and family. It was a great coming together time, and we grew here. We ended up going to 2 services not long after moving into this facility, and we enjoyed attendance upwards of 4,500 people on Sunday mornings. Great growth, great power, great time. And the year 2007, we went through some rough goings there. It was probably one of the most trying times, not only of the ministry, but all of us that were part of the family. Every family goes through rough times. Every family, every person faces things that are really critical moments. And what you do during those times really defines who you are later on or where you're going later on. It really paves the road for your future. If there's one thing that I look at when it comes to our ministry with Pastor Rick, is how strong he was through the hardest time of his life and how strong he was in the hardest season that our church had to face. And all of us here that stuck around, the fortitude that gave to all of us, the impartation, as the head goes, so goes the body. And he really imparted a spirit of fortitude, of faith, of tenacity, of knowing that, yeah, it's rough now. It looks bleak. It looks like we ain't going to make it. But the truth is, our best is yet to come. And here we are. It's 2012, and we're enjoying some of the greatest times of ministry that we've ever enjoyed. We're now Place for Life. I remember in 2008 when we changed the name from Family Praise Center to Place for Life and really focused on what Place for Life is. Place for life. Jesus said, I came to bring life and life more than abundantly. He said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. And the focus of our ministry now, if you hear any message, if you hear it in the praise and worship, in the conversation, it's all about hope and life for the people. And I believe now is our strongest point as a ministry. And the truth of the matter is, if we wouldn't have gone through that rough season, we wouldn't be where we are now. Yeah, there was some loss. Yeah, there was some pain. Yeah, there's things that we'll never be able to ignore or set aside. But the truth is, if we didn't have that, we wouldn't be who we are now. Our past made us who we are now. And the fact that we were able to fight through it all, specifically Pastor Rick, being able to stand and make it through. When everybody and everything told him to quit, he didn't. He did not quit. As my spiritual father, when I see that, I know now, no matter what life throws my way, I ain't quitting. There's no way in the world I'm going to quit. And I believe our people see that. I believe us as a family have really adopted that philosophy, that mindset. No matter what, we're going forward.
When we settled here, I remember saying I could never stay because this is my phrase, the ground was too hard and the trees were too short. Yeah. And I wasn't used to it being from Louisiana. I mean, it's just dirt as deep as you can dig. And it's kind of symbolic of our journey because it's, at times it's been rough. It's been rough here. But overall, it's been a great joy. So if you could take a phrase or a word, say 19 years of ministry in this city, what would you come up with?
Journey. It's just been a journey, because journeys are never all good and they're never all bad. It's definitely been that for us. It's taken us up, it's taken us down. We've gone through every kind of turn you can imagine. It's just been a real journey for us. But, 19 years later, I look back and I think of everything that we learned, and we couldn't have learned it unless we went the way we went on our journey.
I think Crystal said it right when she said journey.
Yeah.
There are people that have been here from day one that are still here. There are people that have come and served this ministry in this house for seasons and made huge impact. And so on a night like tonight, it's good to come together as the people of God, to be able to share stories, to be able to pass the stories on and say, even for families that aren't with this ministry anymore, to be able to look and say, there was something special that happened here, because history repeats itself, and there's a lot that we can take from what's happened in 19 years of ministry here in San Antonio.
For me, it'd be people. One word, just people. I can sit here and go through hundreds and hundreds of faces and names and people that I've met, pastored, worked with in ministry, from establishing of the School of Excellence with Dr. Britton to, name it. It's just hundreds and hundreds of faces, thousands and thousands of people that have sat in front of our pulpit. And, I think about a lot of the founding members being here today. Our first membership roll was 60 people. that we said, these are the members of Family Praise Center. And a lot of those people are here today, 19 years later, and that speaks for itself.
Yeah.
I'm thankful. I'm thankful for the people that, you know, that we have been able to eat with, laugh with, cry with. We've given our life for this city.
Yeah.